Devil May Cry Season 2 on Netflix. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We do have something to talk about. Devil May Cry is a video game series by Capcom that genuinely, I'm new, had me going like pretty intense. There you go. Had me going for a cool minute. I didn't get into DMC from the get-go, right? For those of us uninitiated, the first DMC was on PS2. It was honestly, it was a spin-off from Resident Evil. They took those Resident Evil styles and assets, and they twisted it into a new formation of a dual gun wielding, sword wielding, dual gun using mercenary who was also a devil. And that premise, believe it or not, fuck you, has been done more than once. You're talking to the guy that like, I didn't skip school. The first time I ever drank a 5-hour energy was because I had exactly one last final day to finish Devil May Cry, the reboot, not the original. So I know a lot of people out there are gonna be like, whoa, this guy, red flags, right? But that's why I bring that up. Because this is a new interpretation, a different telling, a reboot, if you will, of the Devil May Cry series, as is apparent by one Capcom support. What is wrong with you? One Capcom who has continuously provided support. That's something that we don't get to see often. Very impressive that one Netflix is able to pull in a intellectual property from Capcom. From what I can think of right now, I'm thinking of all the Amazon shows that are being produced. Capcom hasn't really done that with many people besides Netflix. And maybe some Amazon there, but the idea now that Netflix has been doing their whole shtick of, yes, increasing prices, but also trying to go out of their way to bring more of a international / anime aesthetic to the platform. And it's been going well for them so far. Again, this actual presentation comes from a studio called Andy Shakir Productions, and he's notorious because he actually started with Netflix with the production of the Castlevania adaptation. So now you got two game developers on his belt, Capcom and Konami. And what he did in those early years of Castlevania really did something for me, and it was a bit different. But again, someone who's stepping in, taking a story that we have known for years, if not decades, on the Nintendo Entertainment System / PS2, and bringing paint a fresh coat, sure, but also to a point of fleshing out a character that I personally didn't really expect, but I was wholeheartedly on board seeing what he had done with the Castlevania series. And that's where we begin with OBS is bitching out. And yeah, my bad. And it's pretty interesting because we've had years of Devil May Cry. There has been an original adaptation over in, fuck you, it's the Amazons. Original adaptation done with original studios back in the day, but seeing this new fresh coat allows you to bring something new to the table, kind of like retouch this character and see where we go from there. And not just that character, but the universe that they live in. One of my biggest questions of Devil May Cry was, how the hell does this universe exist and people don't really have anything to say about it? But you find out in this series, as it is fleshed out, that human beings have to deal with these demonic presences entering their universe over and over again. So give it the Avengers feeling, but take away sort of that positivity angle, and you're left with a badass swordsman who really, really likes pizza and strawberry ice sunshake milkshakes. And that's a take. You know, obviously, again, I'm bringing up the whole idea that one of my favorite titles was that Devil May Cry super edgy ass remake. Not necessarily because it was super edgy ass shit, although that was my prerogative in those years, but because it brought something like twisted. The music that it brought was more like industrial metal, and that sounded really sick. The gameplay itself felt like nice and tight, and they even brought in a couple of different like skill sets for that character. So to me, Dante always being the guy with the red coat, with the white hair, with the sword and the guns, will always be a thing, because that comes from previous years and one Devil May Cry, one Marvel vs. Capcom 3 featuring Dante and Virgil, which me and my homies used to play religiously. So in a weird way, I'd probably say that my favorite interpretation of Dante has always been that moveset from Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And that matters. Why does it matter? Well, we talked about how Mortal Kombat did a more this time around with their combat, their skills. You see a couple of moves directly taken from the game and put into that film, albeit a live action film, and that's what really kind of brings it to another level. But here we have this animation team, again hosted by Adi Shankar, and they go pretty intense when it goes to like showing specific moments from specific game titles. Again, Devil May Cry is very strange. The chronological order, I believe, is Devil May Cry 3, Dante's Awakening, Devil May Cry 1, the original, Devil May Cry 4 or 2? That's where things get weird. Technically 2 doesn't exist anymore, or it's super into the future, blah, blah, blah. And then you get 4, 5, and then whatever happens at the end. So the story has always been kind of all over the place. So to see this interpretation of Dante do his own thing, start from scratch, we still don't really understand the kid by season 1, but we know that he has a quote unquote a good heart, a human heart, and he is there to do the job, which is help people, protect people, make some money, eat some pizza, and do it to music. But in this season, we really get to see a bit more of that inner dialogue of what this character is, what they stand for, and what they are willing to sacrifice to get the job done. And that, while I did believe in the skills of the team, that right there was something I didn't really expect. Because again, how do you make a video game character be represented in a different medium, be it animation, movie, blah, 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 stories, books, and still provide this sense of like, no, that's that guy? Everyone has their own idea of what a Dante should be, because everyone has their own gameplay style of how they like to play Devil May Cry. So to have those specific inputs, those movesets, be portrayed into the game, into the anime, see how weird this is? Into the anime, not just by Dante, but by Virgil, and you see those moments and you see certain references, and now we're in the Lord of Years of 2026 where we get even memes represented in this anime. Yes, Virgil gets his lawnmower chair. Damn, it's good. And that brings a smile to my face, because it shows that there are people in that production committee that are looking at the pop culture, are keeping their eyes on the timelines, are seeing what the memes and inside jokes are, and are also very serious about portraying the characters in the way that they deserve to be portrayed. Now, is that how everybody wants the characters to be portrayed? Of course not. People are always going to have an opinion. But what they do with the characters here, and where they've taken them from the first game, for the first season, to kind of putting them in a more, the stakes are higher, yes, but the emotional investment is definitely higher in this, meaning that this character, who is the Devil May Cry attitude gunslinger, has to actually hard swallow the truth pill, and has to act in a way that, needs to get things done. And that right there is something that I don't think I've seen in the Dante character. Yes, he is an overpowered demonic hero, right? Anti-hero, if you want to call it like that. But I don't believe that we've ever had time in the game series to take a second to step back and actually reflect on what this character stands for, or like what his inner monologue is in these times of dire circumstances, when someone is out there cracking jokes and laughing at you, i.e. Spider-Man, while there's a super serious moment between life or death happening right in front of you. It is an interesting character analysis, and for someone that really understands where these notions come from, it felt like an interesting breath of fresh air to be like, yes, this is an overpowered superhero demonic presence guy, but doesn't mean that their universe is as perfect as the universe thinks it is. And that's something pretty strong, pretty like straightforward, pretty honest, if you will. That is something that I do believe the Addy team is very good about. We saw how Castlevania had Trevor Belmont, and how he was basically an alcoholic at the beginning of the series, and it brought him back from that, and it showed him to be like this super cool, obviously capable character, but it wasn't by himself. He was able to meet people that changed his way of processing things, and that became his ultimate like character growth. And that's the type of stuff that we're starting to see in this Devil May Cry series. Again, some people see the first season and they'll be like, oh yeah, it's dumb, it's lame, it's boring, or like it doesn't make sense, or even that's not Dante, that's not Dante, that's not Dante. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I had a tinge of that too. But seeing season 2 and seeing them start to unpack who this character really is beneath all that bravado and all that sick pizza eatiness was pretty impressive. And again, we're talking about a reboot, right? People get disappointed because reboots change things, or they're not the same character, or there's a fear that you will basically bastardize or disrupt the original product, which is what a lot of people are afraid and worried about. Change. So to me, as someone who likes to give people like their space to express themselves and to really try to flesh out their creativities, their thoughts, their ambitions, I do see what we're going with this, where we're going with this. And where we're at in the story of Dante's character, I believe is just the beginning of the good part. Because again, it's a whole different timeline, a whole different story, Probably has nothing to do related to the original Devil May Cry anime that was produced by Funimation back in 2006. Woo! But it does have a future. And from what I know of the Devil May Cry games, because again, I genuinely enjoy them, I can see them going in a direction that will hopefully bring in the hype. Because let's be real, we all wanted Virgil. Shit, I didn't know I wanted Virgil. But then Virgil pops up and I'm like, damn, that is Virgil. And where they leave that story is an interesting point. Not just because it shows who the characters are, what their brotherly relationship is like, but because they put them in a place where I still haven't seen what I'm here to see. And for those uninitiated, the way this season ends, essentially, if we're doing the math correctly here, I got my physics right there, then we are inching into season 3. I do hope they get a 3rd season, but season 3 might as well be Dante's Awakening. Devil May Cry 3, the video game, adapted completely into the anime. And that, Devil May Cry 3, Dante's Awakening, obviously being probably everybody's favorite, except 5 now has all the super good mechanics, so obviously 5. But the story of DMC3 really, really, really takes the cake. That actually was my first Devil May Cry ever, so to jump into the story there, that holds a place for me. And if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, we're starting to see the beginning of that epic, that era, that timeline. And to me, that's really exciting. So that will be the big one to see in the future. If people who saw the first season and didn't like it, maybe watches the second season and goes like, okay, it's meh, and then heading towards the 3rd season, if we get what I think we're getting, that's gonna be the big test of people, and to see if they finally accept this Netflix adaptation, which honestly, I hope they do, man. The animation is good. The battles are freaking sick. Like there's some serious like sick ass moments when it comes to the fighting. And the characters that we've been building so far and their relationships do feel genuine, right? I'll finish off with this one. DMC3, obviously, keep on talking about it, is the original introduction for the lady character. So I can understand why a lot of people saw season 1, saw Lady in that season, and started piecing together that they would completely flip everything on its head and it would no longer reflect what the original Devil May Cry video games were trying to reflect or produce or portray. And I understand that, I do. But this is why I say, if basically we have been building up to this point to finally get to the beginning of the timeline of the video game series that we know of, DMC3 is the beginning of the chronological timeline of the whole series, technically, then we have to see what we have done in this Netflix series, try to see what they have been trying to introduce, and if we actually get season 3 being Dante's Awakening, then we know in a certain way for a fact, we know that they are still going through the story just in their own timeline, which helps build up the characters and their relationships, which is honestly the best way to approach this, in my humble opinion. That being said, let's talk about relationships, yeah? Ooh. The lady character and Dante have in my opinion, because again, starting from 3 going to 4, blah blah blah, have it's a big it's a big discussion, right? Everybody has their ships, their fandoms, and they want to go, okay, so does Dante end up with Lady or does Dante end up with Trisha? Which, if you know what Trisha is, then already back that one up. We'll wait until we actually get there in the series. But the whole Lady architecture of basically having her being introduced in this way helps build up the natural relationship building between Dante and her character, which is what you would expect from your average anime where the main character, the MC protagonist, needs to have or deserves or wants to have a love interest. Okay, understandable, got that. You look through your checklist, you put her in there, and you made it happen. Okay. A little bit iffy, because again, we're going through like, is this very like is this canon? Like, is this actually what these characters would do or interact or how they would blah blah blah? And that's up to the interpreter who is watching the show. But then they do something very interesting with that relationship. And again, you can watch this show, you can see the fights, you can see all the demonic action, and you'd be like, yeah, that was cool, man. And that's totally fine. You're more than welcome to enjoy what you perceived and what you took out of this experience. But when Adi Shankir and his team really drop a truth bomb about how Lady basically overcomes a point in her life to start reflecting on what this relationship really, really means, and they drop a truth bomb essentially. And again, at any point they could have just let the characters be the characters. Dante being essentially a man-child, knows nothing about, you know, the opposite sex or whatever, is clearly shown that his mind, his mentality is not actual love, if not actual love. And he does care, you can say that obviously, but you see this character and how they interact with the other person, and you can tell that something is not quite there. And the show addresses this to a T. They make a good point about why this wouldn't make sense, and that reflects directly to the games as to why those characters would always keep it what's the word? I hardly use that word. Keep it friendly, right? Whatever the word is. Platonic. And that was ballsy, man. I think that really took like balls to do, because again, you have people who just want the main character to be happy, but the main character isn't ready to be happy, quote unquote. He's not there yet. So the character who is actually there, who's actually had a character development, goes like, yeah, well, I'm gonna need some time. So it's like really, really interesting that they would do something like that to this series. But it also, to me, it shows the big brainness of like building up this character, making people like trip out, being like, whoa, it's actually happening. But then drop the realism of everything and be like, hey, this is why this is the way it is. And that deserves a little thinking, you know? So shout out, man, to Audi and Stream and his team. And honestly, like really, really strong work from them. I don't know how many like animes would be willing to go so real about that. But the fact that this show did that, and it did it effectively in a way that, like, with all the previous romantic moments that had happened beforehand, it must have come at the shock to Dante, obviously, as well, but to the viewer being like, whoa, I didn't see that one coming. That's takes some skill, my dude. So we're pretty much there with that. So where do we end with this guy? Devil May Cry 2, Season 2. I know a lot of people did not like Season 1 because of, you tell me. There's a lot of reasons to not be into it. You're more than welcome to have your opinions, but for whatever Season 1 had going, it was a nice attempt at getting animation down. A good attempt at introducing characters and their skill sets or their power levels, quote unquote, to get to Season 2, where we see all of that be reflected by one Virgil. So, where we go from here and how the team production committee over there want to present the future series, the story of Dante. Again, I really hope it is basically just Dante's Awakening for Season 3, because Castlevania has adapted the Symphony of the Night era in the anime before. So I do believe that the team doesn't have any issues with trying to reach that level. But again, reaching that level and hitting the story of Devil May Cry 3 will be the turning point of if people can actually accept something like this, which again, I don't know why you I get why you wouldn't, but like, it's pretty damn good, you know? And if we can get everyone to understand that and get together and be like, all right, it's pretty good, I'll give you that much, then from there we can only get better, man. And by the time we get Devil May Cry 5, whew, oh baby. The only question being, who's gonna voice Nero? If Johnny Boy Yosh is voicing Dante, who the hell is gonna voice Nero? But hey, don't worry about that. It's a different issue for a different future. And now that we know that Virgil, maybe we'll see a little bit of that story be developed. So here's looking to something interesting and futuristic, won't you say? But hey, that's gonna be it for us today. I have a movie to go watch. The Backrooms, yes sir. Gonna go watch The Backrooms, and then we're gonna go try to check out a couple other things today. If I get that all done, then we're gonna do our best to do a review of The Backrooms tomorrow. So stay tuned, check that one out if you'd be so inclined to. If not, it has been your boy, EXP 626 Stitch, having fun, having a good time, riding a motorcycle to the movies. Makes me happy. So if you like that, if you like this, subscrizzle, and I'll catch you on the next one for Rizzo. But hey, it's been your boy. Thanks for watching. Ciao. Matane. Motorcycles! Devil May Cry! Let's go!